a place to sit. I love it that I had to tell you to stand up. Now I can't get you to sit down. It does. We are so glad that you're here this morning. Last week, Pastor started a series of 2 sermons that he wanted them to go together. Well, if you didn't get last week's, go to YouTube, pull up Pray Amarillo, and you can listen to it. And so that we had Sylvester here from Africa visiting, Samson, and Samson says he goes to Pray Amarillo and listens to our sermons. And I thought, wow, I hadn't thought of that.
When he was here, that next day, he was listening again. He was making a ton of notes because he was fixing to go to Boston and teach, and he was going to use Errol's teaching.
Oh, yes.
He said, I never heard this taught this way.
We'll take it. Old for new. That's good. Old for new. The old is gone. The new is here. We got to quit living in the old. We got to live in the new. Realize who you are in Christ, your identity. And that's a big, big thing. Would y'all welcome Pastor Errol Hainer?
Hey, thank you very much. What a good Sunday morning. I want to thank all you who wished us well through this last week, as you well know. And so thank you so much for that. This morning, we're all going to take a journey. Y'all ready to take a journey? Yes. Everybody likes to mess with my stand. So I'm going to tighten up the ranks. So I just paid for every one of you to go with Dina and I to Hawaii, by the way. Are you good? Are we good? Are we good? First class, by the way. First class, not the cheap seats, not the cheap seats. You don't have to sit on your luggage. You actually get to sit in your own spot with your own little TV, and you get to enjoy. And that is the trip of a lifetime, is it not? I mean, actually, I can probably go to Kenya and back cheaper than I can go to Hawaii, just to be honest, and it's America. But that's the journey we're taking today, okay? And here's the problem that we have, though. As we get in the air, as we get moving, I'm going to pull myself back just a little bit here. As we get moving and we're at the climax of our flight, the captain comes on and he simply says, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be landing here in just a little bit. I need to make you aware of something, and please put your seatbelts back on and find your seat quickly, because we're going to have to land. And when we took off, unbeknownst to us, we blew a tire out. But our sensors are telling us that, we got one of 2 tires. But here's the deal. When we hit ground, when we come in for landing, we are actually going to have firefighters passing us or coming up close to us. Do not be alarmed. It's just routine. It's just routine. Do not be alarmed. But please fasten your seatbelts, and flight attendants make arrangements for crash landing. Don't be alarmed. Now, maybe you've never, ever heard that. But I have. We blew a tire out. Fortunately, there's 2 on that same hub, so it's not a big deal. But literally, as we're coming in, it's lined up with red lights and blue lights flashing, waiting on us. And we landed perfectly fine. Everything was great. But just for a minute, imagine if the other tire went and it turned us 30 degrees. Then we would skid sideways at 200 miles an hour. And you and I will have shared an experience that we will never forget. Actually, every time we see each other, whether it's at church or whether it's out in the public, you remember that flight? Oh my gosh, I do. First class didn't mean nothing at that point, did it? Hawaii didn't really mean nothing at that point. We were kissing the ground when we got off, because we were saying, thank God we made it alive. And we all are tied together now for the rest of our life from that simple scenario. Unfortunately, I did not pay your ticket, by the way. I had to break it to you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Although maybe I paid Dina's, I did not pay for yours. There are events that happen to us because we're in life. Listen up. There are events that happen to us because we're in life. We cannot stop them, and everybody at one point or another has to go through it. One point or another. If you've breathed very long, you've gone through these different things. Last week I taught, I spoke on bloodline generational curses and mental strongholds, breaking those. This week I'm talking about, those are things that happen to you that you break, that God helps you break. Today I'm talking about normal life that happens and their attachments. See, if all of us go through it and all of us experience it, we have what's called a soul tie. We have a trauma and we have a soul tie. A soul tie is when my thinking and your thinking are connected every time we get together, and it takes us back to an event, good or bad. Do you remember the children of Israel when they're walking across and they're on the northern part of the Sea of Galilee, or the Dead Sea, but the Sea of Galilee, or the Jordan River, the Jordan River, and they're fixing to cross. They're at Gilgal, and they've gone through all the circumcision and all the rites and ceremonial rites, and they're ready to cross. And the Levites pick up the Ark of the Covenant, and they step in the water, and the water parts a second time. Parted at the Red Sea, now it's parting at the Jordan. People forget that sometimes. And as they're going across, they've been given great instructions from Aaron and Moses. Pick up a rock as a leader, pick up a rock from the middle, and then put your name on it for your tribe, and then we're going to stack these rocks. Because all of us together have gone through a soul-changing event. And when our children say, why in the world are those rocks piled up right there? I'm not talking about a little rock. I'm talking about something that you have to have a cart to help move. Why are they there? So that when somebody asks, what happened? We will never forget this event the rest of our lives. And it ties us to, were the children of Israel tied together? There was a great question that was asked of me this week, and Dina and I were just chit-chatting about Jericho and all the things. She goes, why in the world did they have to go around 7 times? Well, 7's a number of completion. Well, that's a 3-point shot, swoosh, I'm done, right? But actually, the first 6 were not about Jericho. The 7th day was about Jericho. I want you to catch this. The first 6 days of going around once and keeping your mouth shut, which is a miracle. I mean, they definitely weren't American. They definitely wasn't from Texas or New York or New Jersey or Florida or California, right? I mean, they just have to be from Texas. They couldn't keep their mouth shut on things. He said, keep your lips closed. The first 6 days were the next 6 cities that they're going to have to deal with. Think about this just for a second. We had to conquer 7 different cities for 10 years. First 6 days were about the other 6 cities. We're coming, we're coming, we're coming, we're coming, we're coming, we're coming. The 7th day was 7 times around one city, and then unleash the scream that brings down the walls. Do you know sometimes when you face difficulty, the best thing for you to do is get alone and scream it out? Believe it or not. I don't know if y'all have ever done that. Unfortunately, I have been on the end of receiving that scream a few times. I've had to share bad news a few times and heard either wives or husbands give out a very strong scream. And I've heard it several times, and it's strong. And it's like, I hate having to deal with that, but, you're the man. Deal with it. So today, particularly, I want to talk about traumas and soul ties. By the way, I wrote this 5 weeks ago. So if you're going, wow, that's kind of an odd thing to have happen, just what you come through. You know, sermons are only good if you share them and you live them. I'm just being honest. A real sermon isn't good unless you share it 50 times and unless you've lived it a little bit. And both of these I have lived and shared. Difficult circumstances can happen to anyone, by the way. Matthew chapter 5, verse 45, he's telling them about who they are. We've already had the Beatitudes. It's a Sermon on the Mount, and he makes a statement. He says, the rain falls on the just and the unjust. Did y'all get rained on yesterday? We woke up Thursday morning to a downpour. And everybody in our party said, oh, it's a downpour. I said, it's fortuitous to have a wedding day or a funeral with a downpour. Especially in West Texas. We're not in Florida. We're not in Hawaii. We're not in Kenya. It rains all the time there. But for us in West Texas, if it rains on those days, it is considered a blessing. Why? Because it's dry. It's dry. Trauma sometimes happens to us all. Matter of fact, it will if you breathe and move very long, right? Soul ties happen to us all, good or difficult. Do you know you can be tied to somebody and it's good? Because if I see you out at Toot and Totem or Pack-a-Sack filling up with gas, and I pull up to the next aisle and I start filling up and I don't say something to you, is that unusual? It's very unusual, isn't it? You say, well, it's unusual for you not to talk to anybody on the other side. What are you talking about? Just us. You're exactly right. I pulled up my old Ford yesterday, and another old Ford pulled up right beside me. His was like a 56 that was really in great shape. And he looked up and he goes, hey, 69, huh? I said, you're exactly right. I said, 56. He goes, yeah, you're exactly right. Camaraderie. The soul tie is the way you think, feel, and do, guys. Do you know why the old saying is birds of a feather flock together? Because they're alike. Do you know what the word click actually came from? So, well, they're just a click over there. You know what the word click actually means? They click together well. They connect. That's all it is about. Now, being exclusive is not what we're talking about, but we're talking about connecting well. So each one of us have difficulties that come along that wear on us. Acts chapter 16. It is a story of two men, Paul and Silas. They are going from Neapolis to Philippi, and as they get to Philippi, Neapolis is at the Aegean Sea. It's the very top, and it's called Kavala City today, and it's about 14 miles south of Philippi. Philippi was the head of the Greek culture early on. Okay, and in this process, this is where Philip the Great came from. By the way, it was his Kansas, if you will. Okay, does that make sense? It was his Kansas. It was his place to get away, get quiet. And who's Philip the Great? Alexander the Great's father. Alexander the Great's father, okay? You've heard of Alexander the great Greek ruler, all right? And at Philippi, for 7 days, Paul is preaching and teaching and moving and doing, and Silas is with him. And these two guys, before they leave, they never thought of having anything happen to them that's traumatic. If you go on a cruise, you don't think of traumatic things that happen. But what they're fixing to experience is some of the greatest things that ever happened in their lives. As Paul is preaching and teaching in public, he offends people regularly. I'm sure you've had that happen. You've offended people at different times, haven't you? In this process, offending them, here's what happens. A young girl starts following them every single day as they go from one place to the other, and this girl says, these are men of the Most High God. Listen to what they say. Now, who wouldn't like that? That's fantastic, isn't it? But on the seventh day, he realized, and I'm sure he realized earlier, but he got to the place where he couldn't put up with it any longer. So what happened is he turned around and he said, come out of her. He did it not because he was mad at her. He did it not because he was mad at her. He did it because he was sympathetic towards her. He didn't say, come out of her, demon. He said, demon, come out. He didn't curse her in the process. It was the issue of what was going on in her that he had mercy for. Do you see? Hold on, let me just follow with me for a second. He looks at the girl and he sees what's going on and he has mercy on the girl and he says, come out of her. So I pray that right now. Come out. Come out. There's been in situations where I've said, and I've been in many different situations where I had to say, come out. Stop. Quit doing those things in the name of Christ. You see? And the Lord's hushed it. The Lord's changed it. It was never because I was mad at the person. It was because of what was going on. How traumatic is that? How much more traumatic is it to have it inside of her? Is very traumatic. So here's what happened. When it took place, the men who owned her because she was a slave girl got furious. And they took what would be iron rods. Now, think about this. Iron rods. They grabbed them. They were used for other things. They grabbed them at the blacksmith, turned around and started beating Paul and Silas. Not once or twice. How many whacks does it take on your head to knock you out with a rod? It doesn't take long at all, does it? Doesn't take, one blow will knock you out, won't it? One blow, boom. It says they beat them till they were completely unconscious. Wow. 39 stripes Jesus took on his back. The Romans put on him. Greeks and Italian, the group there, were merciless. They beat him black and blue. And then they drug him and threw him into a prison and put him inside. How traumatic is that? Extremely, extremely traumatic. Tragedy and trauma have a sting attached to it in this life. We carry it as a mark. We carry it as a tattoo. We carry it as a position. We carry it as a position. Let's stop right here for just a second, okay? Let's take just a minute. Let's stop right now because you're focused on that anyway. Stop our tape right now, if you would, please. Thank you all. If you would, thank you. Let's continue. That's exactly right. There's a sting attached on this side, isn't there? Come on, just think for a second. When you go through something, there's a sting attached. There's a tattoo on our soul a little bit. It feels like a jabbing. It's very difficult. It's tied to the way we think, the way we feel, and the way we do. So let me just ask you to scale these just real quick here. From 1 to 10, or from little impact to great impact. Getting a speeding ticket. Is that little impact or great impact? Some of y'all, it's great impact. Some of y'all, when you see the lights in the back, oh my gosh, and you're pulling over, go, what did I do? My gosh, what did I do? That's why they ask you, do you know why I stopped you? No, I thought you just randomly wanted to talk. I mean, isn't that what they ask? Because they want to know if there's an emergency. Do you know why I stopped you? And I knew every single time. I don't have to fool anybody. Why? I knew every single time why I was getting stopped. You see what I'm saying? And most of the time, and knock on wood here, most of the time I can talk to the cop and it's a done deal before he ever goes back there and checks everything out. I got stopped on the way to Kansas a couple years ago during COVID because I was the only one on the highway. And I was pulling an old car in my trailer, in my van, and he pulled over, and he pulled me over. He never even looked at my license. He pulled up. I had my license sitting right here, and he said, how you doing today? I said, I'm great.